everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kim Kuhn, and I am DHEX Project Manager for the Marsh Lumber Sawmill site. I will be going through the presentation and talk about the proposed plan for the site. The agenda for the proposed plan is what we will be discussing during this presentation. I'm going to explain what a proposed plan is, briefly discuss the site history of the activities conducted at the site, the different cleanup alternatives. DHEC will share which cleanup alternative they prefer for this site and provide an opportunity for you to share your comments and questions to DHEC on the proposed plan. The reason DHEC has a proposed plan for this site is to inform the public of the past activities at the site. Also, to inform the public of the cleanup alternatives evaluated in the feasibility study and to gain public input and comments. The proposed plan fulfills the requirement of the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act, CERCLA, and National Oil and Hazardous Substance Pollution Contingency Plan, known as the NCP. Public comment period will run from September 9, 2021 to October 9, 2021. DHEC will select the final remedy after reviewing and considering comments that were submitted. DHEC may modify the preferred alternatives or select another response action based on the new information or public comments made during the public comment period. The public is encouraged to review the proposed plan and the available documents in the administrative record on DHEC's website for the site and comment on all the alternatives presented. The next two slides are maps of where Marsh Lumber site is located. Marsh Lumber is located at 119 West 6th Avenue, Pamplico, South Carolina. The site is identified in the red box on this map. Marsh Lumber property consists of 15 acres of an approximate 20-acre parcel. On May 17, 1946, Marsh Furniture Company Incorporated bought the property from H.M. Props. In 1953, Marsh constructed and began operation on the first sawmill. And since 1953 to present, Marsh activity on the property have included lumber handling and storage, saw and dimensions milling, and lumber treating and drying. The main contaminant of concern on the site is pentachlorophenol, also known as PCP. We'll be using that acronym throughout this presentation. Pentachlorophenol wood preservative is a restricted use pesticide and is used in the lumber industry as a wood preservative for utility poles, railroad ties, and wharf pilings. In 1987, pentachlorophenol was restricted to only be used by certified applicators. Marsh Lumber conducted its first environmental site assessment in 1991, which identified several areas of concern: green chain area, shop area, and the formal underground storage tank area. Multiple assessments have been conducted at the site during 1991 through 1993 to define the extent of the contamination. A consent order was issued to Marsh in January of 1998 by DHEC. Between 1998 and 2019, multiple additional soil groundwater assessments have been conducted at the site to refine the understanding of the source, nature, and the extent of the contamination. The first air sparging pilot study was conducted at the site in March of 2009 to determine if it would be a viable remedy to reduce the PCP concentration. The second air sparging pilot study was implemented in October of 2016 to further evaluate if this technology is still a viable remedy for reducing PCP concentration. And in 2018, the pilot study was modified to include 5 additional air sparging injection wells. To this date, the pilot study is still ongoing. Here is a site map showing the property of Marsh and the extent of the PCP plume. As you have noticed that the PCP plume is confined to Marsh's property. The superficial soil impacts are limited and only occur in the green chain area. The site is currently industrial and potential for worker exposure is low. The site is relatively flat and has sandy soil. Low concentrations present in the soil surface. Risk of contamination migration through surface soil runoff is low. Groundwater on the site is contaminated with PCP above the maximum contaminated level, also known as MCL. The potential exposure for PCP would be from a potential drinking water source located on the property. The PCP plume is contained within the site and the groundwater is not being used for drinking water. We refer to our site cleanup goals as remedial action objectives. They are developed to set goals for protecting human health and the environment. Our remedial action objectives for the site are to remediate groundwater to prevent the human ingestion of contaminated groundwater, reduce the contamination concentration below federal and state maximum contaminant levels, MCLs, and to monitor the groundwater quality until it is restored to drinking water standards. Based on the information collected during site investigation, a feasibility study was conducted to identify, develop, evaluate cleanup options and remedial alternatives. The cleanup alternatives that have been evaluated as potential remedial alternatives are no action, monitoring natural attenuation or M&A, groundwater extraction and pre-treatment by a granular activated carbon or GAC, air sparging, and bioenhancement. In the following slides, I will explain to you about each of the cleanup alternatives and the costs associated to implement each remedy. Alternative 1, no action. No action is included as a baseline for comparison with other cleanup alternatives, which is a requirement by the National Contingency Plan. With this alternative, no action is taken to treat or prevent potential exposure to contaminated groundwater or reduce the volume, toxicity, and mobility of the site contaminants. This action does not include any institutional controls or groundwater monitoring. This alternative would not be protective of human health or the environment and can take many years to achieve the cleanup goals. The cost associated with this alternative includes abandonment and removal of all the monitoring wells, remediation wells, and the equipment associated with the existing remediation pilot study and the closure report. The cost for this alternative is $25,000. Alternative 2, monitor natural attenuation, known as M&A. M&A is a passive approach that monitors the natural degradation or reductions of contamination in groundwater. A typical M&A approach centers on monitoring groundwater regularly to evaluate and confirm that site conditions are supportive of contamination degradation. The long-term groundwater monitoring would be expected to be needed for approximately 30 to 40 years, and institutional controls to restrict development and groundwater use would be implemented. The cost of M&A would be approximately $1,025,000. Alternative 3. Groundwater extraction and pre-treatment by a granular activated carbon, GAC. Groundwater extraction and ex situ treatment alternatives involve extraction of groundwater using recovery wells. The groundwater will be recovered through a piping network and routed to a pre-treatment area. Then the groundwater would pass the contaminants from water to the filter media. The GAC does not destroy the contaminants, it just captured and suspended in the media, which requires periodic replacements of the carbon filter. Institutional controls and long-term monitoring would be included in this remedy. The cost of this remedy is approximately $3,980,000. Alternative 4, air sparging. Air sparging involves the injection of air into the groundwater aquifer to strip the contaminants from the groundwater. It provides a source of oxygen to promote aerobic biodegradation. Air sparging can be used for boundary control and reduction of dissolved phase contaminants of concern in the source and stimulate aerobic biodegradation. Institutional controls and long-term groundwater monitoring would be included in this remedy. The cost for this remedy is approximately $630,000. Alternative 5, bioenhancement. Bioenhancement involves the remediation of groundwater contaminants through injections of microbes that are known to metabolize the contaminant of concern, or nutrients to increase the population of naturally occurring microbes in the subsurface. The duration of this remedy would take between 5 to 10 years. Institutional controls and long-term monitoring would be included in this remedy. The cost of this remedy is approximately $945,000. Evaluation criteria. The National Contingency Plan requires that DHEC uses specific criteria to evaluate and compare the different remediation alternatives to select a remedy. The evaluation criteria we begin with is the overall protection of human health and the environment. When evaluating alternatives in terms of the overall protection of human health and the environment, consideration is given to the manner in which site-related risks are eliminated, reduced, or controlled through treatment, engineering controls, or institutional controls. The second criterion is compliance with state and federal regulations. This evaluates whether an alternative meets federal and state environmental statutes and regulation that pertain to the site. The third criterion is long-term effectiveness and permanence. This looks at how effective the alternative is at reducing the risk at the site and the reliability for the remedy to maintain a reduced risk over time. The fourth criterion is the reduction of toxicity, mobility, and the volume through treatment. This is the degree into which an alternative employs treatment to reduce the harmful effects of the contaminants. The alternative limits the ability of the contaminants to move in the environment and how the alternative reduces the amount of contaminant present. The fifth criterion is short-term effectiveness. This looks at the risk of the alternative poses on the on-site worker, the surrounding community, or the environmental implementation, as well as the length of time needed to implement the alternative. The sixth criterion is implementability. This considers the technical and administrative feasibility of remedy implementation, as well as the availability of required materials and service to complete the alternative. The seventh criterion is costs. This is estimated active remedial costs and costs of ongoing groundwater monitoring. The final evaluation criteria we'll evaluate is community acceptance of this preferred remedy. This is evaluated after the public comment period has ended. Based on the community acceptance, DHEC may modify the preferred alternative or select another remedy. Criterion rankings. After comparing each remedial alternative with each other using the evaluation criteria, each alternative was ranked with a scoring system to look at how well it performed in each criterion. The scoring system gave each alternative a ranking from very favorable with a score of 5 to very poor at a score of 1. As you can see from the scoring system, alternative 1 and 2 scored very well in implementability compared to the other alternatives because they are both passive treatment options and require no construction to implementability. They both scored poorly when it came to 4 of the criteria and provided effective remediation at the site. The 3 active remedial alternatives, alternative 3, 4, and 5, scored similarly throughout most of the evaluation criteria. Air sparging and bioenhancement scored is slightly higher compared to the 3 other alternatives. Cost is evaluated with all remedial alternatives, but more emphasis is placed on how well the alternative will perform in the first 6 evaluation criteria. Cost would become a larger factor in the decision-making process if 2 or more alternatives ranked very close to each other, but had significant cost differences. DHEC has identified alternative 4, air sparging, as the preferred remedy for the site. Air sparging is a type of groundwater remediation technology where air is injected into the groundwater aquifer using a system made up of a series of vertical or horizontal injection points. A pilot study was conducted at the site using air sparging remedy. With the data collected from the study, it concluded that the remedy reduces the PCP concentration in the groundwater and acts like a barrier to the downstream migration. The air sparging system will be expanded and operated for approximately 5 years or until the groundwater contamination has been adequately treated. This cleanup alternative will substantially reduce contamination concentration in the source area. long-term groundwater monitoring would be required, and institutional controls would be established to restrict the use of groundwater at the site. This alternative is the best in terms of the overall protection of human health and the environment, long-term effectiveness and permanence, reduction of toxicity, mobility, or the volume through treatment, and has the shortest active remediation implementation period. The estimated cost for the implementation for this alternative is $630,000. The next steps for this site are DHEC will take any comments or questions on the proposed plan until October 9, 2021. After DHEC reviews any received public comments, DHEC will identify the selected remedy in the record of decision. Following the record of decision, the responsible party, Marsh, will develop a plan to construct and implement the selected remedy and submit it to DHEC. DHEC has created an administrative record that includes the proposed plan and all of the reports that were used as a support for the proposed plan. DHEC's administrative record can be found at DHEC's website for the site at www.scdhec.gov/marsh-lumber. And a copy of the administrative record is located at the Pamplico Public Library, located on 100 East Main Street, and their phone number is area code 843-493-5441. DHEC encouraged the public to review these documents to gain an understanding of the site and the activities that have been completed. DHEC is accepting public comments on the proposed plan from now until October 9, 2021. I want to let everyone know that DHEC will respond to all your comments and they will become part of the record of this site. Comments can be made in writing or by email to Kimberly Kuhn at 2600 Bull Street, Columbia, South Carolina, zip code 29201, or by email at kuhn@dhec.sc.gov. If you have any questions about the site or the proposed plan, please contact me by email or by phone at 803-898-0722. Once again, the public comment period will be open through October 9, 2021. And thank you again for taking the time to watch this presentation.